Today we're going to go over the use of the free online photo editing software PIXLR. And so if you just go to pixlr.com, that's PIXLR.com, it'll bring you to this page. And we're going to use today the advanced PIXLR E. And when I click on that, it brings me into the software. It shows me some recent files that I had. I can do that. I can go to create new and make documents of pretty much any size up to, I think it's 4096 by 4096 pixels. I could do a stock search, but for now, I'm just going to concentrate on working on one of the pictures that I had opened a little while ago. So I have a picture here of my son and Halloween 2012, I think. And so one of the first things you'll see is that there are a bunch of tools very similar to the tools in Photoshop. This whole program works very similar to Photoshop. And just like with Photoshop, if you hover over any of the tools, it tells you what the tool does. So the magic wand select, use the magic wand to select areas with similar colors. Okay, so for instance, with this picture, if I look onto the right, I see the navigate tool, which means I can make the picture appear bigger or smaller. If I could zoom in very close to look at something, or zoom out. I can also look at the layers, and we'll talk about layers in a little bit, probably in the next video. This one just want to go over a couple of real basic photo editing things. So in this program, if you want to do a basic adjustment, for instance, of brightness and contrast, you go to Adjustment, Brightness, Contrast, and if I pull this lever down, you'll notice the brightness of the picture gets much darker. If I pull it up, it gets much brighter. And the contrast, if I pull up, the contrast being the difference between the lights and the darks, gets very high or very low. And if I want to compare what I'm doing to what, let's say I do this. If I click on this button, I will compare. That's my unedited version, and that's where I am right now. So I'm not going to actually keep that, so I'm just going to cancel this. One of the really important tools in PIXLR and Photoshop is something called the Burn and Dodge tool. And so if you hover over this tool, you can lighten or darken areas of the image to bring out the dark areas or to dim the light ones. So with almost every tool, there are a bunch of different options for it. So what mode, lighten or darken? So if I pick lighten and range the midtones and the brush, which I can pick the size of the brush, the softness of the brush. If you have a very soft brush versus a very hard brush, you have a soft line versus a hard line, and the strength. So for instance, if I'm going to pick a bigger brush. So now my brush is this big. Since I have it on lighten and midtones, if I paint over an area, it brightens the midtones of that picture. If I click on darken midtones and the same thing, I can darken the midtones of the picture. And vice versa with shadows will only affect the darker areas. Highlights will only affect the brighter areas. And so even though I'm doing just showing you an example, I wouldn't necessarily do that to this picture. But I did notice that, and I'm going to undo a bunch of times. Undoing is simple. You just hit Command and Z. And so in this picture, I noticed that it looks like it was taken with flash. And there's a little bit of a highlight right here. So I would probably go to midtones, bring the strength down to like maybe 15. And then just go in here a little bit and even it off. And then I'm going to go into the highlights and do the same thing. And notice it kind of just makes it a little bit closer to the tonality of the picture, of the right side of the picture. It's also in his face a little bit, but I want to zoom in for this one. So if I zoom in like that, and while doing that, I use the hand tool, which is at the bottom. When you're zoomed in more than can fit on the screen, the hand tool will help you navigate and move around the picture. So I want to go to his face, and I'm going to darken that up a little bit too. So I'm going to go to darken, midtones, and brush size, let's see. I'm going to have to go down a little bit on that, I think. Okay. And then strength, I'll leave it on 15. I'm just going to take a little bit of that harsh flash look off of his face and his neck. Okay, then I can go back. I'll zoom back out. And that's basically a very simple edit. Also, under brightness and contrast, there's temperature and tint, hue and saturation. You can change the colors. You can change the the highlights and shadows, exposure. There's so many different things in here. But just for now, brightness and contrast, we'll deal with that. Okay, and that will do it for this first video. So I hope you all have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Oh, never mind. Forgot one last thing. I do want to save my picture. So I'm going to click on Save, and then see it's Halloween 20112. So this is Halloween 2012. I want to save it as a JPEG, but you could also save it as a PNG, or depending if you're doing web work or whatever. Quality high, and the size. I'm going to keep the size as it is, and when I click on download, it's going to go into my downloads folder, and it's going to save me a JPEG version. And then I click close. And that's it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.